In this lesson, we'll take a closer look at the security role structure that's provided out of the box in Dynamics 365 for Talent. In a role-based security system, access is not granted to individual users. It's only granted to security roles, and users are then assigned to those specific roles. A user who is assigned to a security role has access to the set of privileges that's associated with that role. A user who is not associated to any role has no privileges. In Dynamics 365 for Talent, the role-based security is aligned with the structure of your business. Users are assigned to security roles based on their responsibilities in the organization and their participation in specific business processes. The administrator grants access to the duties that users in a role will perform, not to the actual program elements that users need access to. Because roles can be set up for automatic role assignment, the administrator does not have to be involved every single time that a user's responsibilities change. The Dynamics 365 for Talent security model is hierarchical, and each element of the hierarchy represents a different level of detail. Permissions, which are at the bottom in the securable objects, are created by Microsoft, and you don't have access to the individual permission nodes. They represent the access to the individual securable objects, such as each menu item, table, report, and so on. Privileges are composed of permissions and represent access to tasks such as creating a new worker or enrolling a worker in benefits, for example. Duties are composed of privileges and represents part of a business process, such as maintaining bank transactions or maintaining compensation information. Both duties and privileges can be assigned to a role, which is then used to grant access to a user in Dynamics 365 for Talent. Let's take a closer look at some of the role-based security features. In Dynamics 365 for Talent, security is role-based, and many of the security roles and duties are provided out of the box to help with the base security definitions. By using role-based security, users are assigned to roles based on their responsibilities in the organization and their participation in various business processes. Again, instead of identifying and granting access to application elements, the administrator assigns duties which users in that particular role will perform. In Dynamics 365 for Talent, a single set of roles applies across all companies and organizations by default. The administrator does not need to create and maintain separate user groups or roles for each company. Even though roles themselves are not specific to a company or organization, the administrator does still have the ability to specify a company or organization context for a particular user in a particular role. All users must be assigned to at least one security role in order to have access to Dynamics 365 for Talent. The security roles that are assigned to a user determine the duties that the user can perform and the parts of the user interface that the user can view and modify. The administrator can also specify the level of access that the users in a role have to current, past, and future records for date effective data, and they can assign the level of access such as view, edit, or delete. Duties correspond to parts of a business process. The administrator assigns duties to specific security roles. A single duty can be assigned to more than one role. In the security model for talent, duties contain privileges. For example, the maintain compensation transactions duty contains the load employee compensation and run compensation process privileges. Although both duties and privileges can be assigned to security roles, it's recommended that you use duties to grant access to Dynamics 365 for talent. In the security model for talent, privileges specify the level of access that's required in order to perform a job, solve a problem, or complete an assignment. Privileges again can be assigned directly to those roles. However, for easier maintenance, it is recommended that you only assign duties to roles and not to assign a privilege directly to a role. A privilege contains permissions to individual application elements, such as user interface elements and tables. For example, the load employee compensation privilege contains permissions to the menu items, fields, and tables that are required to upload the employee compensation information. In the security model for talent, a permission grants access to logical units of data and functionality such as tables, fields, forms, and server-side methods. Because Dynamics 365 for Talent is a software as a service solution, you don't have access to the permissions. However, you have access to all of the other elements of security and can control the level of access to each element within the interface. Before you start modifying or updating the security, it's a good idea to have an understanding of the role design principles that were used when creating the out-of-the-box roles that are available in Dynamics 365 for Talent. Several common design principles are used. We'll talk through the role types that are used in the out-of-the-box roles, along with the role segregation categories. Roles represent the common access rights that are required for the job positions within an organization. Roles also account for the organization's size, culture, and industry focus. And again, users are assigned to one or more roles according to their jobs. The role types are broken down into three basic types of roles. The functional role, for example, the compensation and benefits manager. This role grants access to the functionality that this particular user needs to do their job for compensation and benefits management. The organization role, such as employee, grants access to the basic functionality that all employees need. For example, the employee self-service pages. The application role, such as system user, grants access to the basic properties of the system, which give you access to the home page, your task list, and other general features that are used throughout the system. The role segregation categories are divided up into four types that each focus on their types of responsibilities. The first role segregation category that was used in the design process for the out-of-the-box roles is validation. These are for clerks, and validation type roles focus on recording transactions. Next are verification roles. Verification roles are used for users to validate the correctness of records and transactions. Authorization type roles are typically used with supervisors who authorize the processing of transactions. And management type roles are used for managers to review transactions periodically and apply changes to the setup processes as appropriate. Next, let's take a look at the security diagnostics tool in Dynamics 365 for Talent.